and welcome to the Peddling Prince's Podium. I'm your host, John Ardelli. I love getting comments on this show, whether you agree with me or whether you don't agree with me. If you agree with me, that means you're enjoying the show, and that's a great thing. I love to know if my audience is enjoying themselves, but I also like to hear if you don't agree with me. I do appreciate criticism for constructive purposes that helps me improve the show. However, I can't stand two particular kinds of criticism. The first is the one that's just designed to make me look bad, or to attempt to make me look bad and to make the other person look good, and not try to do anything constructive, but just trying to hurt. And the other one, and this in a way is even worse, is the person that tries to make themselves out to know more about something than they really do. These two things just stomp on my last nerve. And it just so happens that I got comments that fall into both categories over the last couple of weeks, so I'd like to address them. First, I'd like to address a comment from Minotaur on the front page of my channel. That's spelled capital M, number 1, NIT, 0R. I guess that's supposed to be pronounced Minotaur. Anyway, he knows apparently from watching my shows that I want to do professional films. So he writes, "You can't edit. All you can do is cut footage, put in titles, and poor sound effects. You wouldn't know anything about the professional editing programs. I wouldn't be surprised if all you use is iMovie or Windows Movie Maker or some other free editing software. There is no way you would be accepted into the film industry. Oh, by the way, I have experience with Sony Vegas, Cinema 4D, and Adobe After Effects. Kind regards, Robert B." Kind regards? After saying all that? Whatever, dude. Anyway, I actually got an email from Minotaur before I did this show. He said that, "I'm sorry, I didn't send you anything. That was a friend of mine at the computer." Well, I don't know whether that's true or not, and it really doesn't matter, because I'm going to respond to the comment regardless, because somebody made it. But I would strongly recommend, if you're telling the truth, that you never let that friend near your computer again, because he's making an idiot of you. First of all, the very first sentence in his comment, where he said sound effects, he spelled effects AFFECTS. It should have been EFF. Now that's a serious grammatical mistake. Now that may sound like I'm nitpicking, but remember, his point was supposed to be that I couldn't get into the film industry. Now, I've read about 4 or 5 books on screenwriting over the years. Some of them were good, some of them were bad. But one point they all had in common was that you have to be careful about your spelling, your grammar, and your punctuation when you're writing a screenplay, because if you don't know how to write properly, it makes you look inexperienced and unprofessional. So I suspect that this guy would have a great deal of difficulty getting a screenplay read, because if he makes a serious grammatical mistake right in the first sentence. Anyway, that having been said, his original point was supposed to be that I can't be a professional filmmaker because I don't know how to use the professional editing software. That has to be the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. I don't think that Victor Fleming had any idea how to use any of that software. In fact, I know he didn't. And if you actually recognize that name, you'd know why. Victor Fleming was the last in a series of directors that worked on The Wizard of Oz, probably, arguably, the most famous film of all time, and certainly the most viewed film of all time. It is a major classic, and yet the filmmakers made that by physically cutting film and using an optical printer for your dissolves and so on. Not a single computer ever touched that film. Even the script was written on a typewriter. So what I'm trying to say, Mr. Robert B., is that being a filmmaker has nothing to do with the tools you're using. You don't even have to be using a computer. Filmmaking is a talent that either you have or you don't. It has nothing to do with the software. Anybody with basic computer skills can be taught to use the applications you know how to use. I will bet you dollars to donuts that when you learned to use those applications, you were expecting them to do more work than they actually do, weren't you? And when you got to them, you saw what they actually did, you realized, oh God, They don't tell me half of the things I need to know. I mean, when do I use a wipe? When do I use a dissolve? What footage should I use? Where should I cut? You know full well that I can make films better than you can, and it kind of scares the living pants off you to see that I can make better films using iMovie and GarageBand than you can with Adobe After Effects and Sony Vegas. Now, the other person I'd like to respond to is Desmond Jr. He wrote a series of comments, actually, on the episode MV Highlanders from a couple weeks ago, the episode on the new ferry that runs between Newfoundland and North Sydney. The comment that he made that started all this, and please bear with me, this is kind of difficult to read. It traveled between Cape Breton Island, Nova Scotia, and the island of Newfoundland. Not Newfoundland, ya dink. If you were to say it travels from North Sydney, the port of call it would travel to on Newfoundland Island would be Port of Basque. You really should do a little more research if you want to be a good host of a show such as this. Now, the way he worded that, you should do a little more research if you want to be a good host of a show such as this, made it sound like he was speaking from experience, as if he had made a show like this before. So I decided to check out his channel, check out his show, and see how he does it. He doesn't have a show like this. The only thing uploaded on his channel was some guy singing karaoke. Now, there's nothing wrong with that if you want to just upload raw footage. Lots of people do that on YouTube. My problem is, if you're going to tell me how to do my show, then show me that you know what you're talking about. So I figured, well, if you can criticize how I do my show, then I can criticize you for the way you write. The reason that was so hard to read is because he doesn't spell properly, and not even the name of the place, Port of Basque. He claims that he's from Newfoundland, and yet he can't even spell Port of Basque right. Anyway, when I pointed out to him that all the spelling and grammatical errors, he said, I do that deliberately. He writes the way he talks. And the people in Newfoundland talk that way, and I'm proud of being a Newfoundlander. I'm proud of my island heritage. You're not exactly doing the hometown proud by writing the way you talk. I'm sure you know, and some of the viewers, especially from the local area, know, that Newfoundlanders have a bit of a reputation for being less intelligent. And that's why the Newfie joke, as we know it in the Maritimes, is so popular. The unfortunate thing is that this reputation isn't deserved at all. I've known many Newfoundlanders, and on the average, they're no less intelligent or more intelligent than anyone else I know. So basically, Mr. Desmond, by insisting on writing bad English and defending your right to do so, you're just perpetuating the stereotype of the stupid Newfoundlander, especially among people who aren't from here. Remember, your comments can be read by anyone in the world. A person from Great Britain is not going to have any idea that you're writing that way because you talk that way. They're just going to think you don't know how to write English and are going to have a lower opinion of your intelligence as a result. And because you are mentioning Newfoundland as your defense, they're going to think that all Newfoundlanders write that way, as is what you're trying to say, and then they're going to think that all Newfoundlanders are stupid. And you know what? That really irritates me. Because although I'm not a Newfoundlander myself, I don't think it's fair that you should be speaking for all Newfoundlanders and making them all look bad by doing this. Now, you don't seem like a stupid person, you just seem like a stubborn one. I will willing to bet you could learn to write properly and spell properly. Well, I strongly suggest you do so if you're so anxious to represent Newfoundland and you're so proud of your heritage. Then do Newfoundlanders a favor and don't keep perpetuating the stupid Newfoundlander stereotype. Thank you for watching the Peddling Prince's Podium. I'm your host, John Ardelli, and I hope to see you all again here next week. Bye for now.